Hey, what's up everybody? I got the rotisserie done for the cab, so I threw together a video to show y'all a little bit of the process and how that went. Y'all hang out with us. All right, so here's part of it. The main pieces that hold the tube that rotates for the rotisserie. I found this piece, which I used for my square body cab. It worked really well. I'll reuse that and refab whatever brackets I need. I couldn't figure out where the other side went. I got to hunting around. Finally found this contraption. Evidently I made something to dig a trench with behind my tractor. Doesn't look like it worked too well. But there in the middle of all that is the piece I need. So I have to cut that out. Anyway, there's my casters. Let's get to it. All right, we're halfway there. Got the two ends made. Oh, it's too cold for this shit. So even though I think I got a good weld, I'll put something across it as a safety. Overkill is a good thing. So, back mount is higher than the front mount. Figured out that it's about, what was that, 2.5 inches? 2.5 inches higher. And then, run this all the way in. I put it about halfway of the hole. It's parallel with the frame. Then I have to figure out where this hole is. So it looks to be about 1.5 inches from the edge. 1.5 inches offset. Divided by 18, track where the sun's at. That's how I come up with it. Trying to determine how wide I want this rotisserie. I'm doing it for a specific purpose for the cab, so I'm not really trying to make it adjustable. I think I want about 1 foot in the front of the cab for room to paint or sand or whatever I'm gonna do. And about 1 foot in the back, so somewhere around 7 feet. So I'm gonna cut 2 pieces 7 foot long. I looked at the frame. I figured out what the offset was. I'll measure it out. And I'll make it work. It's time to turn the heater on. So I've got both ends together. They're probably a little taller than they need to be, but that's fine. I'm basing this off of what I did last time. I'm going with the same height because it worked out. I am going to do it a little bit different this time as far as how it connects to the truck. I made this funky piece for the square body, and that's usually how rotisseries are made. They attach to the front and the back of a vehicle or a cab or whatever. But I think I'm going to connect the front and the back this time. Kind of make a cradle that'll hold it. I think that'll just work out better. We will see. So when I do stuff like this, a lot of times I look for ideas on YouTube or on the internet, you know, kind of look around, see what other people are doing. Then I just kind of wing it from there. I've got a good idea what I want to do with this rotisserie because I did one before with the cab, and I'm really just going to figure it out as I go. It's always worked for me. Well, sometimes. All right, so the back of the cab is 2.5 inches taller than the front, so it needs to be 2.5 plus 2.5 plus 1.5 inches is 4 inches, right? 2.5, 4, 3.5, yeah, maybe 1.5 inches. So my bolt needs to be plus 4, needs to be 5 inches in the back. Gotta have room to thread it in, room for a washer. In the front, room for mistakes, so that's 1.5 inches. 5. Okay, we'll buy 5-inch bolts and 5.5. See how thick that is. Not sure about the back. 2 in the front, so 2.5, right? If I do a 1/2 inch, I'll do a 1/2 inch. All right. So I'll do 2.5, 3, and 3.5. Plus another half to thread in. What's that? 2? 5, 5.5, 3, 3.5. Washers, nut. Let's go to the hardware store. Are they open today? Chunk change. So I'm going to have to use my engine hoist again and this jig. I'm going to lift the cab up so I can do some measuring. Someone wanted a close-up of this thing. It's made out of 2x4s. That's where the ball will rest. So you got one 2x4 on top of another, sandwiched between 2 more on each side of it. And then it's notched on each side. The notch is to keep it centered on this seam. Works out good. Since I've got the frame, I can measure off the frame or I can measure off the cab. If I go from center-ish to center-ish, 41.5, 41.5-ish. Let's lean this way and it'll measure. Yeah, that's dead center, 41.5-ish. So that should be where the back mount goes. To the front mount should be 41.5. Back is 2.5 inches taller than the front. So I want it to stand off 1/2 inch, so we'll add 1/2 inch to each one. So let's cut a 1/2 inch piece of 2 inch. It's wrong. Or is that right? That's right, I think. That's a dull bit. This is 2x2 by 3/16 tubing. It's kind of heavy. So that's the front. See if we can figure out the back. I'm trying to make sure my bolt's gonna fit. I think I bought bolts that are too short. So, these bolts are this much offset, plus the thickness of the brace. Ah! Man, there's too much thinking involved in this. So that's going to be 2.5, 3.5, 4. So 4 inches minus 1/4. Is that right? 4 inches minus 1/4 inch. I wonder if I got any 4-inch tubing. So I'm still figuring. That might work. It might not. I'm gonna clean them up where they fit a little better. And I'm gonna weld these pieces in. So the distance from the front mount to the back was 41.5. Now, gotta try to center this at 41.5. And the reason this is sitting on the side is because the offset from this mount to the front mount was 1.5 inches. So I got these washers and I'm going to weld them on top. Give me a nice flat surface. And the bigger hole gives me a little bit of slop room. So I should be able to make this thing bolt up fairly easy. Uh-oh. I'm not sure where I lost my way yesterday. This bracket only needs to be 2.5 inches tall. I made it 4 inches. Time for a little slice and dice. I'm gonna get both sides snug. So far everything's going pretty good. The only thing I don't like is how close this is. It'd be hard to get paint right there. Maybe I should have moved this over a little bit, but at least it's not touching. So we should be good to go there. We'll make it work. It takes me a good couple of acres to get something built. Gotta have room to spread out. Got these in, bolted down. From the firewall, I got about 1 foot, maybe a little bit more. Same in the back, I've got about 1 foot. So now we've got to put in something to tie these together and something that'll go into the pipe and rotate. When I made this piece for the square body, I bolted in this piece and this cross beam, and then I built the rest of it to connect to the rotisserie. So that's kind of what I'm going for here. I think it's easier to put these pieces in, bolt them in, and then figure out the rest on your way out. So I'm about to build the connection from the rails underneath to the rotating assembly of the rotisserie. So I'm basing this off of what I did on my C10 cab, my square body cab. I actually got this center of gravity just right. It's best if this is adjustable, but really don't have all the materials I need to make it adjustable right now. So what I want to do is I'm just going to weld it up, hope for the best, hope I don't have to cut it back apart to get it, get the balance right, because the balance is very, very important, because if it's too high or too low, this thing will just swing around on you. If you try to rotate it over and it's heavy, it takes too much effort. It can also just take off on you and spin, and it's just bad all the way around if the center of gravity is not right. Just a quick word on safety. If you do any of this stuff, you got to make sure, first of all, you can weld enough to hold something together. And you've got to be redundant in making sure it's going to stay together. If I just butt this up, weld this around, that might hold. But that's a very weak joint. It could tear away. You know, this thing's going to be supporting a lot of weight. So I try to be redundant in how I join things together. I'm not the greatest welder. I can make it work. Here's the old piece that I'm going to reuse. This is the piece that I put behind my tractor. Put these pins on each end, and I welded a bunch of crap on here. But anyway, it's the old piece of the rotisserie. I'm going to reuse it. I'm going to clean up all this garbage I got on here. But anyway, I didn't just butt this thing up. I didn't just butt it up like that. I actually took time to notch the tube, and that way I could weld all the way around this thing. On the top, the back side, the bottom. And I also, if you can see it with all this mess I have on here, I put a piece across the top that came down, kind of an L bracket, to give it even more support. Welded all that together. So I try to overkill it when it comes to making a joint, because I do not want it to fail. Things can fail. This is not a very big piece of tubing. I knew it when I welded this thing together. I kind of got ahead of myself. I wanted to go play with it in the yard and see if it would dig a trench. I knew I needed more support, but I went ahead and stuck it in deep and took off with the tractor. And it folded up like nothing. And the same thing can happen on a rotisserie or anything you build. So you got to be super careful about your joints, putting this thing together. Like I say, overkill is not a bad thing. All right, I got that piece welded together. So we'll make our piece to go across. We'll connect the pieces, and then we'll put some braces on it, get everything welded up where it ain't gonna move. So this is 2x2. This is 2x3. I'd probably build this whole thing out of 2x2, but I don't have any more, so I'm having to use what I got. It's a little big, it gets heavy. I'm still gonna brace it. But anyway, so I'm gonna notch this out. I'm gonna notch that 2x2 out, and that way I get more welding surface. Get all this instead of, I don't want to just weld it across here. It's not a whole lot of support. I want to notch this out, and that way I get all these welds. Instead of having 2 inches of weld, I've got 4 inches of weld, 2 inches and 2 inches. Now for the other end. There it is, our salvage piece and all the new stuff. I think we got it welded up pretty good. I don't think she's going anywhere. So So we've got it on there, bolted in. It's time to put it together, see what happens. See if it's got any deflection to it. Should be pretty strong. We've got the bottom braces on. We've got this bolt to keep it from sliding out. It can't go forward. We don't want it to go backwards. So now we're going to take it off the hoist and see what happens. All right, she's sitting there. I've got a pin in it to keep it from rotating until I can determine how heavy it's going to be. Doesn't seem to have a lot of weight to it. So there's a lot to consider if you're going to build a rotisserie. Safety, safety, safety. You got to make sure, first of all, you have the skills and the tools, the equipment to do it. If you can't weld or you're not that good a welder, it's probably not that something you want to try. I weld pretty good, but I still try to be redundant in my points of, in my mounting points and such, so that I have confidence that it can't go anywhere. So the reason this thing sits so high is to have room for it to rotate. It's got to have clearance all the way around. When this thing is turned sideways, it's got to be enough distance under there so that it doesn't hit. Some rotisseries will have a center brace. If you have a center brace, you have to watch out. When it swings, you want to make sure it doesn't hit the brace. I got the braces on the outside, so that gives me a little more clearance. I'm gonna take the pin out, see how she rotates. So right now, it'll actually sit there. So it'll sit in place, that's good. That means there's not a lot of weight trying to turn over. So we're gonna rotate it around. Nice and easy. See what happens. I call that a success. There it is.